it's Syama, CEO of Scaling Retail, and today we're talking about your content production guide for social media. Now, you might think it's pretty straightforward, take some images, put them up online, but actually, in order to create the really beautiful social media platforms that the fashion brands out there love and have and that you adore, takes so much more time, thoughtfulness, and planning than you've probably even considered. So let's unpack it a little bit more. At the root foundation of any sort of content strategy really comes an editorial calendar. Your editorial direction is going to set the foundation for basically everything it is that you need to be planning and working towards. The editorial calendar is made up of key themes and messages that's probably going to be pervasive throughout all of your marketing. However, it's going to be the foundation not only for your website homepage, for your newsletter, but also for your social media. So when you start to look at an editorial calendar, definitely build out an overarching calendar for 12 months, but then also start to work backwards seasonally, right? What are the kinds of images you're gonna need to be taking that's gonna satisfy e-com, wholesale lookbooks, as well as your Instagram, Facebook, or even your newsletter content. So editorial calendars are the first place to start. Now, the second thing you really need to look at is what is your content photo shoot budget going to look like? Certainly you don't want to have user fatigue as you start to think about pushing out the same content over and over again. So planning in advance for the types of photo shoots that you might need is really going to help you develop a sense of consistency. Without consistency, your brand is going to look great 1 minute and really bad the next moment. So in order to avoid any sort of gaps in any of your production or any of your content, you're going to need to be planning for that in advance, which means, guys, you need to be planning your budget in advance. You also need to be planning the team in advance that's going to help you produce said content. Next, we turn our attention to copywriting and inspiration. Even though platforms like Instagram are predominantly image-based, people are leveraging this platform in order to read and understand and get to know your brand voice a bit better. I can't tell you how many times I've seen brands at launch without a strong communication strategy or verbal and brand guideline as to how they're going to speak to their customers. Oftentimes, many of you, including myself, really fall in love with brands that not only have great images about product, but also use quotes or inspiration or use images as with text in order to really help explain what they're offering. So how do you know what to say or what not to say? How do you know what those templates should look like for other kinds of content? Taking the time to build out what that social media strategy looks like, but also what those templates look like are going to be extremely important and valuable as you grow that business over and over again and start to really build what that team is. Now, lastly, as we look at different sources and ways and opportunities to be able to source content, user-generated content tends to be the one that's most often overlooked, and yet it's often the one that's most often talked about. Now, when we talk about user-generated content, what I'm meaning very specifically are the kinds of images that you're getting from your customers or maybe influencers who are producing content on behalf of your brand, and whether or not that content is actually applicable to what your brand is actually showcasing. Sometimes there's a huge disconnect. Gifting oftentimes tends to be a strategy that a lot of brands use in order to get free and organic images. However, if those images are not in alignment with what your aesthetic is, then what the hell's the point, right? So as you look at curating user-generated content and looking at other opportunities for sourcing images, make sure it's very clear what those brand guidelines are. Make sure you have example images. Perhaps you're getting some friends together to do a fake user-generated content photo shoot. Perhaps you're getting a few friends together to do a fake user-generated content photo shoot. And what's great about that is you can then, by virtue of creating the UGC, you're able to actually showcase to your potential person who's going to be posting what it is that really espouses your brand. Oftentimes, you'll see that brands will choose not to repost content because it's not in alignment. So you really need to take the time to train your customer into how you want them to be demonstrating the brand. Now, in addition, guys, we've gone over editorial planning, we've gone over your content production photo shoot budgets, your copywriting guidelines, your verbal guidelines in terms of how you want to be writing and showcasing images and images with text. But the last thing that's very important, and I want to stress this again, is as you're pushing out content, make sure you have the right systems and software in place in order to understand the data. right? So obviously from a content planning side, you're putting out there the best possible scenario and what the idealized version of that content is. But the only way to know that your content is resonating and the only way to know the ways in which you need to pivot is by analysis. So how do you do that? Some of the platforms I love are something called People Map. It gives you a real first-hand glimpse into who's following you and what kinds of images are being liked and what your content matrix looks like. But really, any sort of analysis that you can give and perform on a monthly basis will help you then pivot and change your content accordingly. So, as you build, launch, and execute your experiments on social, please make sure to do your postmortems, analyze them, and then pivot them on a quarterly basis. And lastly, guys, before we sign off today, I want to give a little bit of a nod to reposting content and really the ways in which we should be thinking about that. You know, it used to be that people would just repost all tons, different kinds of content from different Instagram platforms. And to be honest, Instagram has become a huge creative hub whereby a lot of creatives take that opportunity to showcase their work. And one of the most important things about that is actually your ability to give credit for which you found the images or really where that inspiration is tying back into your brand. There's no point in reposting other people's content if it's just to tell a pretty image without having the right story behind it. Make sure that you're giving credits to the right people and also make sure that you're having some sort of tie back in to the overall philosophy and ethos of your business. Instagram trends are changing all the time. Whether you're looking for a super stylized image board, very highly curated, using presets, or you're choosing a more raw, organic position, the trends are always evolving. So keep your eye on the prize and make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due, because the Instagram community, even though it's huge, is also quite small. All right, guys, that's all from us on planning your social media content calendar. Make sure you take a look at our article that really helps to explore more content strategies to be able to help you really guide this process along the way. And also take a look at our download, the Scaling Retail Guide to Content Creation. We have a really great template, editorial calendars, and an opportunity for you to start to synthesize and incorporate what we've been doing professionally with your business to see how that actually aligns. Leave comments below. Would love to hear your approach to content creation, how you see the trends are actually pivoting on Instagram, and then certainly make sure you follow us on Instagram at Scaling Retail, where we produce a ton of original content, videos, and strategies really designed to help you build, launch, and grow your fashion business. If you're in need of help and guidance on the marketing side, business modeling, capacity building, send us an email at hello@scalingretail.com. Thanks, guys. Bye.